I just have one last question.
Uh-oh.
No, you'll like this question.
All right.
What would you do if you had this roads fund money? What immediately would you do?
It's a
What's
great
the
question.
plan?
It's a great question, and I've thought about that. As a matter of fact, I shared that plan with Commissioner Hare today. All along, I've spoken about trying to get resident deputies, and all along I've spoken about trying to get deputies positioned in our schools as well, primarily the high schools. And although I haven't really dotted it, how I'd make that happen, that's where I would like to see the money go. I think the communication from the citizens can be much improved and enhanced by having a member of our law enforcement organization, their law enforcement organization, in their communities, going to their functions, going to their individual parades where they recognize them and know them and feel freely to speak to them. So I think that's where I would like to go if I could get some of those monies. I would like to put the resident deputies out there, however, in the schools. But however, what you have to understand too is the hard part of that is the time to get up and running. That's the difficulty, because ideally it would be nice to have lateral officers, deputies. Ideally, because
those would be deputies that have already been trained and have offered to come back here.
Already been through field training, not necessarily from here, but somewhere else.
We hear that they do exist.
They do exist, but they're very difficult to come to a place like this, because who wants to come to a place where nothing's sustainable? There's no guarantee that in over 2 years they're going to have a job.
Yeah.
So,
of course, if you don't have a job right now, though, that makes that decision a little easier.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. But you have to understand too. I'm giving a tremendous. I have to. There's a tremendous amount of time that has to be spent in making sure you're picking the right person too. You can't have a person that you can't trust in law enforcement going around doing things, carrying a badge and a gun, because it's a tremendous amount of power in that regard. And so it's very important that I hire the right person. And we do it right and go through the process right. So that's the difficulty I have with that plan, just up front. I'll just let you know, is how fast it would take me to get up and running. If I have to hire a new officer, a new deputy, it could be upwards of a year almost to get that type of a situation up and running. And that's
could they though be involved in some of the resident officer duties before they have the rest of before they're fully trained? Could they, like this job of going into the high schools and stuff, couldn't some of that be done without the full on training being completed? No. Okay.
Unfortunately, no. There's not, because there's huge liability there in cutting someone loose before they're properly trained or certified. So it's a process.
But if this person's a lateral person, then they would only need whatever supplemental training.
Then it's just
somebody like that could probably be deployed immediately.
Very, very soon. It's just a person like that, I might be able to get out in maybe 2 or 3 months. You go through you go through the hiring process. If you're a new deputy, you're going to go through the academy. Then you're going to go through a field training and evaluation program, and that's at the end of it. Academy's 4 months. Field training and evaluation program could be 3 or 4, unless it's a lateral. Maybe I can train that person in 2. They understand everything else. You don't have to spend the time teaching them how to be a police officer. So that's the variable there, and that's the cold hard truth of it. That's the hard part that's hard for me to swallow, is taking monies that's for 2 years, knowing that potentially I'm not going to have anything to show for it for a year. That's where I struggle, because I'm all about trying to get the county the best return on investment. And but law enforcement's different like that. It's not like we're not an organization or a job where you can say you worked at Burger King one day and you can just swap right over to McDonald's the next day, and you can be trained in a day or half a day.
Yes.
So it's different than that.
But there's a lot of money in road funds, and it is replenished by the state. So it's not as if they couldn't say now or later, you know what, we've evaluated this is so helpful, we're going to do it for another year or another year.
It's altogether possible.
Right. You know,
But the will has to be there,
right.
Mike.
Exactly. After taking the road funds, one of the first things that I would do personally is begin lobbying for the extension of this beyond January of 2016, because that's the cutoff.
For the road funds being able to be used by road deputies.
Right. Now, the speculation that I heard through the grapevine is that they were going to take $1 million, split that over 2 years.
Right.
In other words, if they take that money out of the road funds now, then it's up to them to spread it out over whatever period of time
Correct.
they want. They just have to take it out before that time. So I would advocate for the maximum, certainly.
Maybe even publicly, Sheriff.
Yes.
I get you, Dale.
Yes, and then you know, and then it can be spread out over however many years. And if you watch some of the videos that we put up on that, what Margaret Goodwin says is that there's $8 million there, and that it's the largest surplus, if you will. They may want to call it something different, of any that has ever been in that fund. And that even if you took out $1 million, it would still be higher than it had been in any time in the last 5 years. So they would still have contingency funds after their normal budget, you know, so keep flogging that horse.